The Giants blew the doors off Milwaukee in a 16-3 rout headline by Daniel Susac's two-homer day, while a wild slate of one-run games and a Chris Sale gem kept the rest of the league on its toes. The Marlins outlasted the Phillies 8-6 in a slugfest at Lone Depot Park. Miami got the long ball from both ends of the lineup, with Griffin Canine and Heriberto Hernandez each going deep to power the offense, while Trea Turner answered for Philadelphia with a solo shot of his own. The Marlins' speed game was on display too, as Esteury Ruiz and Xavier Edwards both swiped bags to add pressure on the base bats. On the mound, Tyler Zuber picked up the win after a clean inning of relief with 2 strikeouts and no runs allowed, and Pete Fairbanks slammed the door with a scoreless save to preserve the 2-run margin. Miami's lineup was deep in this one. Javier Sonoja and Otto Lopez also chipped in hits to keep the line moving. Philadelphia got contributions from Brandon Marsh, Justin Crawford, Bryce Harper, Edmundo Sosa, Alec Boehm, and Bryson Stott, but the Phillies' pitching staff couldn't contain a Marlins attack that scored 8 runs on the day. A high-scoring, back-and-forth affair that Miami ultimately controlled late. Eduardo Rodriguez turned in one of the best starts of the day, tossing 8 shutout innings with 2 strikeouts to lead the Diamondbacks to a 3-0 win over Pittsburgh. Gabriel Moreno provided all the offense Arizona would need with a solo home run, and Corbin Carroll added his stolen base to keep the pressure on. Brandon Garcia closed it out with a scoreless save in the 9th to seal the shutout. Pittsburgh's lineup managed to scratch out a few hits. Brandon Lowe, Brian Reynolds, Jared Triolo, and Nick Gonzalez all reached base, and Triolo swiped a bag of his own, but the Pirates simply couldn't solve Rodriguez, who cruised into the 8th before handing things off to the bullpen. A dominant pitching performance carried the day for Arizona in a game where the offense stayed relatively quiet on both sides. The Blue Jays took down Washington 5-2 behind a strong outing from Trey Yesavage, who worked 6.2 innings and allowed just 1 earned run while striking out 4 to pick up the win. Kazuma Okamoto was the offensive star of the game, going 3 for 5 with 2 RBI to drive in a big chunk of Toronto's runs, a line that stands out as one of the better fantasy performances of the day. Miles Straw added a stolen base, and Louis Varland locked things down with a 2-inning save to finish it off. Washington got hits from Jorbit Vivas, Dalen Lyle, James Wood, Jacob Young, and Luis Garcia Jr., but couldn't string together enough offense to keep pace. Toronto's lineup was efficient from top to bottom, with Ernie Clement, Dalton Varsho, Davis Schneider, Yohendrick Pinango, George Springer, and Alejandro Kirk all recording hits alongside Okamoto's big day. A wild slugfest in Detroit saw the Orioles hang on for a 10-9 win over the Tigers. Spencer Torkelson went deep for Detroit, but Baltimore's offense did just enough to survive, with Grant Wolfram picking up the win in relief and Andrew Kittredge recording a nail-biting 1-out save. Jackson Holliday added a stolen base for the Orioles, while Gunnar Henderson, Leody Taveras, Taylor Ward, Pete Alonso, Colton Cowser, and Kobe Mayo all had hits in the win. On the Detroit side, it was a rough day for Howie Lee, whose 11-game hit streak came to an end, but teammate Zach McKinstry kept rolling, extending his own hit streak to 7 straight games. Javier Baez, Gleyber Torres, Matt Vierling, Dylan Dingler, and Colt Keith also reached base for the Tigers in a game that saw both bullpens get taxed and the lead change hands multiple times before Baltimore finally closed it out. The Mets edged the Braves 3-2 in the opener of their doubleheader, getting a late lift from the bullpen as Huascar Brazoban picked up the win and Devin Williams closed it out with a clean save. Matt Olson's solo home run was the offensive highlight for Atlanta, and Drake Baldwin kept his hit streak alive at 7 straight games with another knock in the loss. New York countered with a speed and contact approach, led by A.J. Ewing, who swiped 2 bases in the win, a standout line for anyone streaming speed on the waiver wire. Francisco Alvarez, Brett Beatty, Carson Benj, and Jared Young also had hits for the Mets. Atlanta's Jorge Mateo added a stolen base, and Joey Bart, Mauricio Dubon, and Ali White chipped in hits, but the Braves couldn't quite complete the comeback in a tight, low-scoring opener that set the stage for a nightcap rematch just hours later. Chris Sale was dominant in the nightcap, striking out 9 over 6 shutout innings to lead Atlanta to a 1-0 win and a doubleheader split with the Mets. It was a complete role reversal from the opener, with Sale silencing a New York lineup that managed just a couple of hits all game. Raisel Iglesias slammed the door with a scoreless save to lock it up. Austin Riley added a stolen base for Atlanta, and Drake Baldwin continued his strong week at the plate, picking up another hit to keep his streak going in both ends of the doubleheader. Mauricio Dubon, Jim Jarvis, Matt Olson, Ali White, and Ozzie Albies also had hits for the Braves. The Mets got production from Carson Bench and Eric Waggaman, but a single run was all Atlanta needed behind Sale's dominant strikeout performance, capping a big bounce-back day for the Braves after dropping the opener. The Giants absolutely demolished the Brewers 16-3 in the most lopsided game of the day, and Daniel Susac was the headliner with a 2-homer performance that made him the biggest fantasy out of the night. San Francisco's offense was relentless from top to bottom. Heliot Ramos went 4 for 5 with 3 RBI and stole a base, while Luis Ariz matched him at 4 for 5 with 2 RBI and a steal of his own, giving the Giants 2 elite fantasy lines in the same lineup on the same day. Willie Adams also swiped a bag as San Francisco ran wild on the base bats all afternoon. Logan Webb was excellent on the mound, working 6 innings and allowing just 2 earned runs with 4 strikeouts to pick up the win. Young-Hoo Lee, Drew Gilbert, Christian Koss, and Oslevis Basabe all had hits for the Giants as well. Milwaukee got hits from Cooper Pratt, Christian Yelich, Jake Bowers, David Hamilton, Bryce Turang, and Luis Lara, but the Brewers were simply overwhelmed by a Giants lineup that piled up runs in bunches from start to finish. This was the most complete offensive showing of the day across the entire league. The Padres held off Colorado 3-1 behind a strong bullpen effort. Griffin Canning got the win despite a short outing, working 3 scoreless innings with 4 strikeouts before San Diego's relief corps took over and Mason Miller closed it out with a clean save. Freddie Fermin, Jackson Merrill, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., Ty France, and Jake Cronenworth all picked up hits for the Padres in a balanced offensive effort. Colorado got hits from Mickey Moniak, Willie Castro, Tyler Freeman, Brett Sullivan, and T.J. Rumfield, but couldn't generate enough offense to keep pace. There were no home runs or standout individual stat lines in this one, just a quietly efficient win for San Diego built on solid pitching and just enough timely hitting to get the job done. Mackenzie Gore was brilliant for Texas, striking out 9 over 7 innings. But it wasn't enough as the Rays scratched out a 3-0 win behind home runs from Ryan Vilade and Yandy Diaz. Ian Seymour picked up the win for Tampa Bay with 4.2 solid innings, and Brian Baker closed it out with a save. It was a tough day for 2 Rangers hitters riding hit streaks. Jock Pederson's 9-game hit streak came to an end, and Ezequiel Duran's 8-game hit streak was also snapped, as Texas managed just a handful of hits all afternoon from Jake Berger, Brandon Nimmo, Elias Diaz, and Cam Cauley. Gore's performance was ultimately wasted in a game where Tampa Bay's power at the plate proved to be the difference, with Jonathan Aranda also reaching base for the Rays in a well-pitched, low-scoring contest. The Guardians rolled to a 6-1 win over Cincinnati, getting a dominant short start from Joey Cantillo, who struck out 8 over 4 innings before handing things to the bullpen. Kyle Manzardo provided the power with a solo home run, and Cleveland ran wild on the bases with steals from Chase DeLauder and P.D. Halpin. Eric Sabrowski picked up the win in relief. Travis Bazzana, Brian Rocchio, Gabriel Arias, Jose Ramirez, and Stephen Kwan all had hits for the Guardians in a well-rounded offensive day. Cincinnati's Edwin Arroyo added a stolen base, and Sal Stewart, Dane Myers, Nolby Mart, Eugenio Suarez, Tyler Stephenson, and Arroyo himself all reached base with hits, but the Reds couldn't overcome Cantillo's dominant strikeout stuff early or the Cleveland offense that built a comfortable cushion. Randy Dobnak shut down the Twins over 7 strong innings, allowing no runs while striking out 4 to lead Kansas City to a 4-0 shutout win. Tyler Talbot had the standout individual day, hitting a home run and swiping a base in the same game. Minnesota's lineup managed hits from Cody Clemens, Austin Martin, Ryan Cradler, Royce Lewis, and Luke Keeschall, but couldn't push a run across against Dobmak's efficient outing. Carter Jensen, Josh Rojas, Salvador Perez, Nick Lofton, Michael Massey, Lane Thomas, and Jack Caglianon all chipped in hits for the Royals as well, giving Kansas City more than enough support behind a dominant pitching performance in a clean, wire-to-wire win on the road. The White Sox edged the Yankees 6-5 in a home run-heavy battle on the south side. Munetaka Murakami and Sam Antonacci both went deep for Chicago, while Spencer Jones answered with a homer of his own for New York and also stole a base. Jordan Hicks picked up the win in relief for the White Sox. Cam Schlittler was excellent on the mound for the Yankees, striking out 8 over 6.1 innings, but the effort went for naught as New York's bullpen couldn't hold the late lead. Jose Caballero and Jazz Kishom Jr. also swiped bags for the Yankees, while Ryan McMahon, Paul Goldschmidt, and Ben Rice added hits. Chicago got contributions from Chase Maydroth, Edgar Quero, Andrew Benintendi, and Miguel Vargas as well, and it was Antonacci's blast that ultimately provided the winning margin in a back-and-forth slugfest. The Cardinals held off the Cubs 3-2 behind a big offensive day from Ivan Herrera, who went 3 for 5 with 2 RBI to power the win, one of the better fantasy lines of the day. Louis Gastelum picked up the win in relief despite allowing a run. Pete Crow Armstrong went deep for Chicago, but it wasn't enough, St. Louis got additional hits from Jordan Walker, Lars Nootbaar, Blaze Jordan, and Alec Burleson to build the cushion Herrera's big day provided. It was a tough afternoon for Cubs infielder Pedro Ramires, whose 8-game hit streak came to an end. Alex Bregman and Seiya Suzuki also had hits for Chicago, but the Cubs couldn't complete the comeback against a Cardinals lineup that got its production in bunches, with Herrera's multi-hit game standing out as the deciding factor. The Astros powered past the Angels 7-4 behind home runs from Jeremy Pena and Yadier Diaz, with Diaz turning in the standout performance of the game at 4 for 5 with 2 RBI. Hayden Wesneski worked 5.2 innings for the win despite allowing 3 earned runs, and Brian Abreu closed it out with a save. Isaac Paredes, Cam Smith, Jose Altuve, Taylor Trammell, and Christian Walker all added hits for Houston in a well-rounded offensive attack. The Angels battled back behind hits from Mike Trout, Joe Adell, Denzer Guzman, Vaughn Grissom, Nalan Chenot, Wade Meckler, and Tyler Heineman, but couldn't quite close the gap against a Houston lineup that got production up and down the order, with Diaz's 4-hit day proving to be the difference maker. The Red Sox outlasted the Athletics 4-2 in a home run-heavy contest at the Coliseum. Lawrence Butler and Jonah Heim went deep for Oakland, with Heim also going 3 for 5 with an RBI, but Boston answered with homers from Jahmai Jones and Andrew Monasterio, who finished 3 for 4 with 2 RBI to lead the way. Caleb Durbin also went 3 for 4 for the Red Sox. Jacob Lopez was sharp for the A's, striking out 8 over 5.1 innings, but the effort wasn't enough as Boston's bullpen took over behind Aroldis Chapman, who picked up the win, and Greg Weissert, who closed it out with a save. Jeff McNeil added a stolen base for Oakland, while Wilson Contreras, Nick Sogard, and Rafaela also had hits for Boston in a game that featured 4 home runs and several strong individual performances on both sides. Andy Pages led the Dodgers to a 4-2 win over Seattle, going 3 for 4 with 2 RBI and a home run in one of the better all-around performances of the day. Eric Lauer was strong on the mound, working 6 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts to earn the win, and Edwin Diaz closed it out with a save. Dalton Rushing, Max Muncy, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, Teoscar Hernandez, and Mookie Betts all added hits for Los Angeles in a deep offensive showing. Randy Arozarena stole a base for Seattle, and Josh Mailer, Cole Young, Weston Wilson, and Dominic Kinson chipped in hits, but the Mariners couldn't overcome Page's big day or a Dodgers lineup that got contributions from nearly every spot in the order. Detroit's Howie Lee saw his 11-game hit streak come to an end, while teammate Zach McKinstry is now the one heating up, riding a 7-game hit streak of his own. In Atlanta, Drake Baldwin extended his hit streak to 7 straight games across both ends of the Braves-Mets doubleheader. And in Texas, Jock Pederson's 9-game hit streak was snapped and the Rangers lost to Tampa Bay. Daniel Susac was the top fantasy performer of the day, lunging 2 home runs in San Francisco's blowout win, and he had plenty of company in that Giants lineup. Heliot Ramos went 4 for 5 with 3 RBI, and Luis Ariz matched him at 4 for 5 with 2 RBI. Ewing offered a nice speed line for Mets managers with 2 stolen bases, and Kazuma Okamoto turned in a strong multi-hit game for Toronto, going 3 for 5 with 2 RBI and a win over Washington. That's a wrap on today's action around the league. Hit subscribe so you never miss a recap, and we'll see you back here tomorrow for more.